This podcast is sponsored by CDO Group, the industry leader in providing a full range of construction and project management services. CDO Group has managed thousands of projects in all 50 states. Their group of experts provides systems, processes, and procedures to make sure that your projects turn over on time and on budget every single time. With over 24 years of experience, CDO Group is the industry's leader in construction management and general contracting services. To find them, go to cdogroup.com. Hi, and welcome to the Future of Development podcast. My name's Anthony Amunategui, and I'm here to inspire people to find amazing careers in the construction development world. If you like our podcast, please make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. If you really like our podcast, make sure you hit the little bell. Hi, and welcome to the Future of Development podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Amunategui, and today I'm joined by Zeus himself, Hannibal Baldwin from SiteZeus. Their technology helps folks pick sites in a much smarter way. You're going to love this conversation. Let's welcome Hannibal to the show. Hannibal, welcome to the show. I'm excited about talking about SiteZeus, the information of the gods. And as we get into your product and talk about it, to me, technology and information is the key to our business, right? To the where we're going and picking sites a lot smarter than ever before. That's the key to our evolution. The days when I sat on a job site with a little clicker, a little bit out there. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Anthony. I really appreciate it. I love what you guys are up to, and I think it's a natural fit with what you're doing every day and what we're doing every day. I mean, the way I feel about it is we're handling a lot of the analytics side, the information side, and taking a lot of big data and making it small through machine learning. And as I see it, you guys are the folks on the other side helping to execute and put that into place and make it real, make the outcomes real for brands and franchisees and all the stakeholders.
As we continue to evolve from, sitting on a corner, literally, clicking it, I thought we were special when at Boston Market we created this, this application that took, 13 or 15 different components, different algorithms that are measuring points of, churches, drive lanes, traffic count. We took the radius rings of 1, 3, 5 mile rings, and we thought that we put that into a predictable index, and we kind of rated each one of those things, and that gave us a model, and we thought we were geniuses. We really thought that we were, like the leading edge type guys.
You probably were. Yeah, 100%. And then, what you guys are describing is still something that we do see a lot of brands still using today. We've modernized on top of that approach, but fundamentally, we're still taking a lot of inputs and figuring out how they all index out into what it's going to mean from a sales standpoint. So I don't want to take credit from what you guys used to do. It's just transformed over the decades.
We'll say that we started. You guys just made it perfected.
There we go.
It's the same thing when I'm trying to open a bottle and then I hand it to my wife and she pops it. And they're like, "All right, look, I started opening it, and you popped it," and then she makes me feel like I'm like, "All right, I'm all right, tough guy." So, as we look at and let's get the audience up to speed. And by the way, hey, audience members, if you like this conversation, don't forget that the only thing that we get is when you guys like and subscribe to us. So if you like the conversation we have between Hannibal and I, please make sure you take a minute right now and subscribe that for me. So I'd be so grateful, and we'd both be grateful for that. As we look at site selection, right? So as a brand is looking to go out and pick a new location, let's talk a little bit about the process that they go through.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think even if you're willing to, I can talk about when I myself and my brother had kind of started our own brand, or at least bought the rights to a franchise and went through that process and that experience, which ultimately developed into kind of the beginnings of the brainchild behind SiteZeus. I think it's similar to what every brand goes through. But long story short, my brother and I, about 10 years ago, right out of college, ended up partnering with my brother's college roommate. His father found this really cool yogurt concept called Yogurtology out in Arizona. And we ended up partnering and buying the rights to Florida, or our partners did, and we partnered with them on building the stores out. And we started building these stores. The first 3 were absolute home runs in the Tampa area, so Tampa Bay, St. Pete, Sarasota. And we were lucky to have our partners and who they were. They have a background in commercial real estate, so I think they they did know what they were doing, not to the extent of what we're doing now with SiteZeus, but they knew their way around markets, and they knew the beginnings of site selection. And so that said, we picked our fourth store here in Citrus Park in Tampa, North Tampa, and it did not perform well. And as every brand knows, you build a poor performing unit that you sign a 10-year lease on, that you deploy, hundreds of thousands or potentially seven figures into the build out of the store, and then you're writing checks into it every month. You realize very fast that you can't afford to do many of those. And so we went through that experience, and we came back reeling from that fourth unit, asking ourselves what happened. And that's where naturally my background was in finance, got a degree in finance. I always gravitated towards statistics. So I went out searching for data to help explain what happened, and ultimately found Esri's business analysts online, started getting some basic demographics out of there, like, just population densities in a radius and incomes and all the other kind of more generic demographics. But ultimately we started building what I would now look back and say is a very embarrassing approach, but still something that was data driven. We took sales data from Yogurtology. We took estimated competitor sales in the yogurt space. We tied it all together and looked at correlation analysis between, all these different demographics, and ultimately had a spreadsheet that provided an index, to your point, that kind of drove the site selection going forward. And we had a lot of success in the units we built after that. Our two top performing locations were chosen with that. And then we actually opted out of some units that were built that ended up closing down. So that was the early pain point, the experience, and what ultimately led to the creation of the beginnings of, before it was called SiteZeus, what SiteZeus is today.
The thing that I find the most interesting is that we get these franchisees who are dying to go do a business, right? And they're in the tech world or in another world. Now they want to go they want to build an ice cream shop or yogurt shop, and they're excited about it, and they're ready. They have a passion. For whatever reason, they decide they want to do that. Now we're going to go ask them to go and become experts at site selection. And by the way, they're not getting much help from brokers. And I don't mean that brokers aren't great at finding sites, but the truth is they're driven by a little bit different. They don't have to pay, right? They've got a different motivation than the franchisee does. The franchisee has to operate that for the next 20 years, where oftentimes we don't have the authentic relationships with the broker who's looking for their best interest. They're looking more for a commission, or they've got relationships with different malls or different developers that oftentimes are driving that support in the wrong way. So now a franchisee can look at a model and oftentimes I believe that I'm just waiting for a broker to tell me, hey, Anthony, I've got your perfect location. Look, we've been waiting to build an island out in the middle of Lake Michigan, and your brand is going to be the brand that's going to center it. And we're just waiting for that because that's just a different motivation.
There's definitely elements of how the brokerage model is facilitated that make it less, I don't want to say less pure, may be the right word. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the necessary structure to make the world go round. But that's where I think analytics come into play to make the decision-making process more pure. I can jokingly say I've heard that probably 50 times from various brokers in the brokerage industry that the number 2 or number 3 Chick-fil-A out of the whole nation is right across the street. I hear that. That's a classic line, and they may not be wrong, but I just heard it too many times where I got to go validate it with other data,
And I think that's where we're really taking the pain points out of development, and as like your SiteZeus is really taking and really making the model something that I don't have to take their opinion or somebody I don't know. Now I've got real data, science, right? Science that really gives me the ability to look at the site with a lot more data than ever before, but done it in a simple way, right? SiteZeus kind of boils that down to a place that I can digest it and not have to kind of, measure all the different components. It gives me something that...
look, we as humans, you have 10 fingers, and that's about as many data points as you can comprehend in one sitting around one decision before it becomes overwhelming. And so the way I looked at the industry, and just analytics altogether and information altogether, the first phase of analytics was descriptive analytics. And that was, let's take big ass data and let's put it in charts, pie graphs, bar charts,
That's right.
you name it, right? Now where we've entered, and we're at the tail end of it, is the predictive analytics phase. And that's where we started in, is the middle of that phase, societally, where you're taking big data and you're using machine learning to make it small, because that's what humans need. You need to take big data, make it smaller through figuring out what's important and how important is it to get to one or two factors or decision points from an information standpoint. And where we're headed, and we definitely haven't realized it yet as a technology industry, is prescriptive analytics, where you're taking predictive analytics, you're getting more data that's descriptive and contextually aware of what you're predicting, so that you can move that predictive analytic farther down the decision-making chain. So if I know that a unit's going to do $1.7 million, for a particular franchise business, that's maybe a successful unit. Great. What's the rent rate? What's the permitting, the zoning, all the different factors? If I have those data points, then I can get you closer to saying you should just build this site. You don't have to go check all those boxes. That's where we're headed as, an information industry, is towards prescriptive analytics. But I know I kind of went on a tangent there.
No. Here. Listen. I even see it further, right? I can really see where AI, and as these analytics get way more intelligent and start to know us, the data points that we have today are just, and there's a lot more now than when I was doing this. You guys are doing, thousands and thousands and thousands of more points than I ever did. And now that's one way. But as we go another bubble out, right? Go another level out, where it becomes millions of pieces of data that get analyzed, people, type, history, all the stuff that really brings in, I could see a future where AI actually draws what is the best case scenario for a marketplace, right? Really understanding the people that are in it, and really lowering the number of failures that happen, because it just knows the people so much better, right? Being able to look at it and go, look, we don't need 17 ice cream stores here. We've already got 4, or we've already got 15 of them. We don't need 2 more of them. And maybe focus your energies on going to market B, where you can do a lot better, because there's only 2 of them over there. And
that's a big value proposition that a lot of brands realize after we build models for them. Everyone always wonders, like, without a modeling approach and without a lot of analytics, you see a lot of brands and brokers go for those A markets that are tip top rent rates, that are cutthroat competition, where everyone's stacked in there and you're sharing, you're taking a small share of stomach. The opportunities for most of these brands is actually in the suburbs or the markets that are maybe B revenue markets, but with an arbitrage opportunity on rent, labor, expenses, where you can actually drive more bottom line profit out of these units than you would in an A or top tier market. That's usually the opportunity.
Absolutely. That to me is the sell, right? Great. You want to put your ego out there and put yourself on downtown Michigan Avenue. Great. You got that, and go, here's my downtown site. And I can get that. Like, you want to get your brand somewhere and show your ego. But
that's a marketing play.
Right. Yeah. I want my ego when I go look at my banking account, right? I want to go look at my bottom line and go, look, there's my ego right there. I did not need to be over here. And maybe there's a combination of both, because you need to have a little bit of flair, but a little bit of this.
Sure.
But I think most brands that are really intelligent, we've watched brands that have been so successful in those B and C markets that have crushed their restaurant groups, that they're the masters of it. They're the fancy place to go out. And, you put them in an A market and they're like, no one sees them.
Yeah, no, look, there's a play and a reason strategically to build in high profile markets and A markets, right? I think it's the responsibility of the brand themselves, the corporate brand, as a marketing play and getting their name out there. Like, I look at Vegas as a perfect example. You're not going on the strip necessarily to make money. Even if you do, it's probably the secondary reason. The first reason is to get exposure nationally to that brand. You look at Shake Shack, you look at the others that are on the strip. That's why they're there.
That's right. That's right. You're getting those millions of people come by, and it's as much marketing as it is, a product.
Making money.
Making money, right. It's exactly that. And, that's funny. So that then goes into my development strategy, right? As I look at it, and, but back to your point about success rate, right? As I look at brands, there's other brands that develop differently. We're working with a brand that's a pizza chain on the East Coast. And they develop one, and they're a really expensive pizza chain. When the first time I went and saw them, they're spending $500,000 to $800,000 for a pizza restaurant, and I thought to myself, that seems a little pricey. But then what I'm noticing about what they're doing is they build one flagship store, and then from there they service it with these mobile trucks. Right,
okay.
And they're pulling data and analytics from places I never even imagined. They're using third-party vendors, the Uber Eats, the Grubhubs. They're pulling data from those and figuring out where to put the next truck.
There's the demand too.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're seeing that demand come in.
Like scouting.
Right. It's kind of a scout, and then they boom put another. It's a little slow. I mean, it's a much slower way of growing. Right. It's a much different way of looking at it. It's hard to roll out that way. But it's a strategy I never even thought about before, right? I never even imagined that would be a strategy.
No, that makes total sense. Yeah, with the invention of Ghost Kitchen, third-party delivery, I think there is a way to de-risk market planning, and we're actually, can't mention the name, but we're going to attempt to be going to market with some very powerful analytics that have third-party delivery data and some other aspects that are very informative to the model, because I think they can be an early tell on demand in a market and where that demand is. And so instead of putting $1 million into a store and hoping there's demand there, you can stress test it with food trucks and ghost kitchens.
It's exactly the right thing. Now we've got another play to look at, right? All right. Look, before I go and do this, I can put a test kitchen, delivery kitchen back there, ghost kitchen in a market, and go, all right, let's try that. I can take the back of a mall, take some unused space, do a quick one out there, facilitate it with the third-party delivery folks. Notice that, all right, great, I've got a great pop here. I've got a built-in traffic model. Now it makes that next investment a little bit smarter. By the way, I think a lot of the stuff that we're doing, there was a lot of the development companies that I've worked for that built for just because of a Wall Street number. I've certainly been driven into bad decisions by bosses who said, hey, look, I've got to make that number.
I've got a quota. I got to build 50 units. Vegas, yeah, there's definitely that pressure too. There's no doubt.
We've definitely been. I've seen that, and today I feel like a lot of the retail spaces that are collapsing. Now, some of that was overbuilt, right? We had overbuilt. Now we also had a different. We had now have a new competitor called Amazon in there, which shook up the whole world and continues to do so. And I think that as we continue to have these new ideas and new data points come in, it gives us a chance to go, all right, let's think a little bit more about it. And what I love about SiteZeus is that you've now got, essentially you've got a 30-year expert helping picking your site, right?
Your data.
Right. You've got all this data that comes in, and it's like you're hiring an expert that you don't have to pay for it. And by the way, these brands can't afford the weight of putting that entire team on. They really do belong partnering with brands like yourself that take them through. Look, get rid of that whole real estate team. Bring on a company that can help you find the locations you want to be. At least let's point to the corners we want to be on.
Yeah. Help. Yeah. Exactly. Find the trade areas, the key trade areas. And that's a big part of our platform. Is like, for example, Site Sonar, one of the features, we can scale up to 50,000 forecasts on any seed node, any piece of real estate or class of real estate that you want to. So if you say, hey, I'm a fast casual restaurant, I've trained my model in SiteZeus, go run all 50,000 forecasts and borrow a lat long from anybody in the QSR industry and their rooftop today. And so we can go seed point all these different trade areas, and it builds a proactive plan to market planning that you can then tell the brokers where you need to be instead of them telling you where you need to be, right? That's right. The key premise in taking something that was historically, and even today with a lot of brands, a reactive process where franchisee, broker bring location to brand approves it. What we're trying to change is brand drives, high integrity intelligence and market planning with seed points to the franchisees and brokers, because it's going to deliver better outcomes, and it keeps them more efficient. So they're not wasting their time digging up dirt that the brand's not going to improve anyways, right?
Yeah, I've watched brands who just took every franchise deal that came at them, and now in first-tier development, great, maybe get away with it. But the problem is, as you start to do infill and second-tier development, and you start to go to that stuff that really goes, look, I've watched those same exact brands cannibalized markets that could have 50,
Yeah.
you could have 50 locations in a market. Now you've cannibalized so many trade areas by putting a location in between or the wrong spot. And
exactly. And it's those first few, those tier ones that they are easy, but actually those placement of the first few units are the most critical because it sets the table for where you can place all of the secondaries and tertiaries.
That's right.
And that's a big portion of when you look at an optimization problem in a geographical space, where you put the first 1, 2, or 3, it drives a lot of the opportunity cost of what the potential of that market is. It really does.
It's that short-sighted thinking, but that you can't fall. There at first your brand, and you're just like so happy to have anybody come in and you're like, oh, I got this. But going back, and I can name numerous brands which I don't want to put them on their face, but how many brands that that suffered because of that, and long term really did affect their overall revenue, and they paid the price for that today. So let's go back a little bit. So as a brand comes in and says, hey, look, Hannibal, I'm interested in bringing SiteZeus on and being my development partner, and I really want to get I need a partner to help me find locations.
Yep. So I think, from our standpoint, what we've done, if we look at the rest of the story, so I think I stopped at, the fact that we built Yogurtologies, we had this spreadsheet, and that was kind of where the idea of SiteZeus took off. So, at a certain point with Yogurtology, we got so excited about this idea, we ended up talking with our partners, and they ended up taking over the day-to-day operations, and we took this idea and started building a software company around it. And there was a lot of naivety and ignorance in that decision, in thinking that one, everybody needs this, and two, no one else solves for this industry. I think we were right about the first one, and that everybody needs it. It's very clear to me now that every single brand that builds stores has bad units.
Yeah.
You have a bell curve of units, and some of those are on the poor performing side. What if those didn't exist? So everybody's got the problem, and we were right about that. What we were very naive about is that, there's no one in this industry solving this. And when we got into it, and you start we built the first version of the platform, and you start going out there and selling and figuring what software sales is about, you realize, oh, wow, there's been these companies that have been in the industry for decades. And what we did find is that they were very recognizable, very great companies led by great people, but they were consultancy-based companies. They weren't software as a service companies or platform as a service companies. And what we had imagined, because we weren't aware of them, and I truly believe this by accident, I think we imagined this experience where you could take a flat file of store locations, addresses, and sales revenue, click upload into a modern web technology or web page, and then 5 or 10 minutes later have a trained and deployed machine learning model that will allow you to go sales forecast anywhere in the nation. So that what I call platform is the ability for a brand to take their data themselves, build, train, and deploy a model they can use 10 minutes later. That didn't exist in the industry, and I don't think we would have done it that way if I was even aware of what exists in the industry, because we probably would have just copied what was happening there. And that's all to say that is what still drives the differentiation and the innovation of what we're building every day and how we separate ourselves in the market from everyone else, is that we actually have built a true platform that our client brands now can take their data themselves internally with a real estate analyst or a VP or a director of real estate, take their data, load it into SiteZeus. We geocode it, pull all the different data for different trade areas, social data, demographics, mobile data, you name it, we've probably got it. And we pull all that for all their sites, and we train a machine learning model. And anywhere from 5 minutes to an hour, depending on how many sites the brand actually has historically. Subway's a client with over 27,000 locations, and we've got some with 30 or 40, right? So but again, minutes or hours later, you've got a model that you can go forecast. And so what we delivered is a process that can give results in minutes and then recycle that process, versus what the industry does today is still takes 90, 120 days. It's a consulting engagement. There's people driving that process. And if you ever want to recycle a model, or you don't like it, or it's getting stale, you're talking about, 5 to 6 figure contracts to update the model.
Right, and it becomes unworkable for a brand. I want to back up, because I think this is something that I want every entrepreneur that's listening. If you're out there and you're thinking that you have to have all the information, I think what Hannibal said is right on. Sometimes not knowing is the smartest thing that I've ever done. I didn't know I couldn't do certain things. And if I listened to the people who told me I couldn't do something, I would never get anywhere, right? How many people, the naysayers, the stuff, you're like, look, if I sat in that every
idea can be shot down.
Every idea. It would start with my mother, right? It would start with her when she told me to, I should have been a butcher. Hey, literally, she was like, Anthony, you should be. She wanted me. First thing, I was 14 years old. She made me go work at a butcher shop, and she goes, look, no matter what, you could be a butcher in your life. I'm like, right, because that was safe, and to her, she could see that, and the thought of stepping out and leaving hometown Florida and right, go to Chicago or the big city. What's going to happen to my little boy? And I appreciate the love and the care. But also, we've never done anything by being safe. We've never done anything by doing the same thing or copying. It's just more of the same stuff, just in a different polish.
I tell my executive team and my entire company every time, like, people sometimes get fixated on, the competition did a press release, they launched a new feature. I'm like, great. It's good to be aware of it. If we're focused too much on competition, you're not focused on innovation. Right. And, what we've seen when we enter the industry is a lot of folks copy our marketing, our website, some of the product. And I tell my team that's what we want. If people are focused on what we've already put out in the market, the past, as I call it, that's exactly where we want them, because we need to focus on the future. And you've constantly got to push to stay and keep the company as it grows angled in that direction, because it is easy to get sucked into what is everyone else doing and how do we copy them, and, getting kind of nervous about what a competitor's doing. I think it's just super important.
For us, it's always about, if we focus on a better product, no matter what, if we stay on the product, this is what that product needs to solve the problem that we have. And when we're solving it better than anybody else, in the construction world, it's always about delivering on time, on budget, and people in this industry use that as this loose term. I was close, or I did our best, and I'm like, no. Listen, when we say this is the date, it's going to happen like this. That's where we're going to live into, and creating the solution. It's focusing on the solution, and delivering on a better product. Just for me, it's always paid off. Like staying away from looking at what everybody else is doing. Right, I can appreciate that. Like, I get to see it because I'm in the podcast world. I get to see all the kind of innovation that's happening. But truth is, we got three things that we got to do every single day. We got to make sure that we turn over our projects on time. Right, we got to turn them over on budget. No matter what, we got to turn them over. Those two things have to happen, and our customers, got to be communicated with and have trusted partners with us. So
yeah, it's simple for us. It's hard to do somehow, ironically, consistently, but it is very simple in concept to innovate. You really, the only person you need to listen to is your client, and you don't necessarily listen to them telling you how you need to solve it. You need to listen to what their problem is, and the innovation comes from us imagining how to better solve that problem. And you do that in a more innovative way if you don't know how other people have tried to solve it, like i.e. your competition. And usually if your client's telling you exactly how you need to solve it, what we found is it's usually what some other competitor's already given them, right? And so it's just staying focused on what is it they're asking us to solve, not how are they telling us to solve it,
Got it. So now the brands come to you, right? And they come from all different angles, different types, different genres, and they bring you with some with data, some without data. Some are learning about their brands, and some have a lot of history about their brands, and they start to upload this into your model, right? Into your software, and from that, give me what the outcome is and how their path of business goes with you. Yeah.
So I mean, the really fun thing for us is that. And this is where we get to prove our value proposition before any brand formally comes on board and subscribes and signs a contract. It's the proof in the pudding is that, is we have a sales pipeline of folks who are interested in what we're doing and are starting conversations. And usually right after a discovery call of understanding what a prospect's problems are, we go to a demo. And then after that demo of the generic platform, we say, look, it's great. You got to see all this functionality. Wouldn't you like to try it out with your data before you ever sign up for anything? And that's what we call our proof of concept. And 98% of our clients or prospects go through that process. They get to essentially, test drive the car before they buy it. And that's something that no one else in the industry can do. So it proves the fact that our core value prop is timely accuracy. We can deliver that in a pre-sale and prove it. And so when the client comes on board, not only do they feel better about what they've signed because they felt it, touched it, used it, but also we've got the first version of their model stood up that we're then very quickly iterating, getting our hands on more data, trying new data points to increase the accuracy of the model. And that's happening usually on onboarding. And in the first 3 months, there's a lot of model iteration, a lot of updates to the model, pulling in more data, trying new data points, surveying sites, getting an understanding of can we quantify management and marketing, because that does affect sales. That's a big portion of being able to predict sales. And then that starts to slow down, towards the 6 and 12 month period. You're not doing a bunch of model rebuilds constantly. And that's where it gets into the utilization of a lot of the functionality, the solutions, as I call them, on top of the platform. And there's 5 core solutions, right? The first one is you need to understand how a particular site's going to perform, right? That's getting a sales forecast. The second is let's scale that concept up and do market planning, or running thousands and tens of thousands of forecasts so you can know optimal placement, not just on one site, but how they all affect each other, network effect and potential, market unit count, right? Market potential. The third is understanding how a new site can impact another site. So cannibalization, sales transfer, both forward and reverse, right? So when you open a site, how's it going to impact? But the hard fact, the reality is that growing brands, and especially ones that have hundreds or thousands of locations, there's closures and there's relocations. And that's a healthy part of growth that has to happen. Yeah. Right. And so, that's a big piece of what we drive on one of our solutions. And then the fourth is understanding who your customer is. So we tie mobile data and social conversations together to tell you literally who are the behaviors and what are these folks talking about that are coming in and transacting in your store. And then the last one is understanding how to optimize your existing stores. So really being able to take that model that was trained on all your historical stores that we've been using for forecasting new stores, but let's look back and let's understand, hey, what if you remodel? What if you add square footage? What if you update with digital menu boards or add Wi-Fi? These are all actual experiments that you can run. Take a brand like it's got thousands of locations and they're going through a remodel, every decade, and they're trying to push the new remodel across the system of stores. They'd like to know, along with the franchisees, which stores are going to have a higher ROI on that $100,000 spend or $200,000 spend to remodel the units, because that's where they're going to start. And that's something that our sandbox feature really, really helps drive from a portfolio standpoint.
And by the way, all those brands you're talking about, the brands that do that work, right? First of all, I'm going to go. The brands that do that work and the franchisees that buy in to operating that way, they're always on the top of the arc, right? Every single brand, every brand that we work for, the franchisee that uses the analytic is looking for the way that it's approaching it. Their stores outperform the rest of the system always, and it's pretty consistent across all the brands that we work for, and it always impresses me to think, right, these are the people who are using data, using the thought process, are leading the charge for the rest of the brands. And then there's always guys at the back of the fish going, well, we should never do that. I can't believe the brand makes me do this. And
exactly, it's the more harmonious relationship between the franchisee and the franchisor. There's definitely a strong correlation between performance. I mean, you're spot on.
I think it's pretty awesome that you guys go as far as build the model and let them try it out. I mean, that takes a lot of effort from you guys to go in there. I mean, that means you're pretty, you have a pretty big assurance of your product to be able to go out there and go, hey, I'm gonna give you a free test drive at this thing, and the hours and hours it takes to set up the free test drive, that's a pretty big deal.
Well, the secret there is it's not too heavy of a lift because of our value prop. It's like, it's really on the client. If can you fill out a spreadsheet of your store's addresses and annual, trailing 12-month revenue? If you can do that, it's going to take our team 10 minutes, take that spreadsheet, format it the right way, click upload, and then we're going to roll into a demo. So it's really, I don't like saying this because maybe it makes people feel better that we're doing a bunch of work for free, but we're not. We put in all the work on the front end in developing the product that way. But it's also the proof of concept is not, it does two things for us. One, it proves our value proposition, but two, it actually very rarely, but sometimes occasionally does, we get a brand that's maybe in an off industry. There's got units that are so disparate and different that maybe we can't build a proof of concept or model that's to the level of satisfaction the client's going to want, or that meets our standards. And I don't want to find that after the fact, after they've signed a long-term contract and paid us money, because that's never a pretty conversation. It's never fun for either side. I've gone through it in the early days of the business, and I never want to do it again. And so we I would say almost require it. We do require it on the sales side, unless a brand is so adamant with us, like, no, I like the product, I want to skip the proof of concept. Stop, let's go straight to it. And we're like, slow down, give us your data for your own sake and our sake. But that's why I say there's probably 2% of the time where the brand it's like, all right, fine, let's do it.
No, I get it too. We get them here. All of a sudden, I've got somebody else going, yeah, we want to start now. Start, just go. And they meet us. I've got one of those meetings happening on Tuesday. They're walking in like, don't, just go. We want you to do all the projects. You came recommended from somebody else. We saw you do it at this brand or that brand or something, and we know what you did for them. And I don't have time to wait because we're up to this. And you know what? Those are few and far in between. But when they show up, I love that we're ready for them, and we can go out and deliver consistently and give them what they need so they can focus on what they do. The brands that are, the thing I've learned throughout my history of this is that, it used to be that we had all of this weight in-house, right? We had this massive if you looked at the team, right, we had this huge real estate team at Boston Market or Blockbuster Video or Discovery Zone. It was a massive, our development team was, over $5 million a year in just overhead, just people, right? Just that team. And then you got to have the people that watch the people, right? Then you got the people who manage it, and the desk and the computer and all this and all that stuff. The defocusing of their own product development and trying to manage a construction company and a real estate company and the operations, all the stuff that it takes to do that. Today, there are amazing companies like SiteZeus that take that off your plate, that now go, good, hey, look, you focus on what you do, and we're going to take care of this segment of your project, of your development with more intensity than you could ever hire. You can never hire this expertise, and you're getting the benefit of thousands and thousands of data points that you could never have gotten.
And I really think that's what we've created in the best performing brands we work with. Is we've created this product that's kind of a hub on that side of the business, where you don't have to have a ton of people in the org now to be successful around real estate, where we're like an epicenter for connecting to the franchise sales, right? Because they've got to drive new sales and get new franchisees on board and sell the value proposition of the brand. And we help do that with our analytics and our market planning. We've really, you talk to our clients, our value proposition plays very well into being able to convince and put confidence behind, negotiating territories, how many units you can put in a territory, what the performance is going to be, cannibalization, all that kind of stuff, paired with obviously functionally driving real estate decisions with internal real estate folks, right? And then the analytics teams we see at the enterprise. We sit at the hub between sales, real estate, and analytics, right? And it lets them all play together in one sandbox.
Now, you guys get talk about the rest of the cycle. So as you go through and you've created the model, right? Now they've got choices, and you've got kind of different games that we can play with the choices. So talk about that a little bit more. Yeah.
So that's where the platform is. When I refer to the platform, it is the ability to train, deploy, and then recycle that process, a sales forecasting model. And then after that, it is ready to use in a variety of solutions, like go drop a pin, get a forecast. You can look at all the raw data you want on demographics, but you want to understand what the variables are that are, the top drivers of that forecast. What are they? What are the top 10? What are the comparable sites? Because that's a big piece in the real estate industry. What are the comps, right? We've actually designed our comps to breed out of the same math the forecast does. And so you get to see what kind of a window in the machine learning, like, what's the justification behind this, $2 million unit, if that's a real excellent or outperforming site? We say, well, look, here's the top data points. Here are your top 5 comps, and look how similar they are on those variables. And it's a big, wow moment, light bulb goes off. And you start to see the resemblance with, a lot of the real estate folks. What's amazing to me, it's so impressive when you get somebody who's been in real estate 20 or 30 years, the amount of knowledge they know about these markets and these sites and their own units. It's like, oh, I know that one. I know that Main and Main, and they can literally visualize everything about it. And what we're showing them is like, hey, it's like a neural network in their brain, combining with our machine learning, and they're starting to see, okay, this machine learning isn't a black box. I can start to trust it. It's looking actually very similar things I do, right? But it's doing it at a scale I was never capable of doing or designed to do. So that's, one of the features that the smart comps in our platform that's very interesting. But
well, I think it also takes them, it has them, look, if 80% of my decision logic is created for me, right now, that 20% that breaks out that I need to really focus on, I can do it justice where I couldn't do that before. I was focused on the 80% of weight that I had to carry to get to the analytic. And, the deals, the great deals, every great deal dies 5 times. I there's a lot of stuff that dies because of a deal. I mean, they just, whatever the deal maker happens. And then all of a sudden, if I'm focused on all this weight and trying to get the data and analytics and, having that teed up for me in a process that I can count on. Now I can really move the deals forward because I have time to go and work on the sticking points. And that's where the finesse of a great real estate person is knowing how to move that deal that's just a little stuck, or how to say the right thing to get something over the goal line that you didn't have time to say when you're spending all this time carrying the weight or standing out there with the clicker.
No, I wholeheartedly agree with it. And to be fair too, the way we train our brands and set the expectation is that do not use us as an end all be all. It's still a model in every forecast, even though I think we have best in class and we push the needle in the industry on accuracy. The question to ask around predictive modeling is not how right it is, it's how wrong, because every single model is going to be wrong some statistical portion of the time. It's just a fact of reality. So we like to get clients seeing the world that way, right? And not saying, why is this thing 2% off, or more than 3% off every time. It's like, well, we got to reset expectations on what predictive modeling is and what's acceptable and what's valuable, right? And so we also train them, hey, we're a portion of the process and the decision-making process. Take our forecast, combine it with key data points that are relevant to your brand that you can get out of our system, and other qualitative metrics. So you've got a sales forecast that's a checkbox. You've got basic data that we're taking maybe from top variables and meshing that with what you believe to be top variables for your brand. That's a checkbox. And then you've got your gut intuition and internal market knowledge of going, seeing the site and kicking the dirt, right? Yeah. You have 3 boxes to check. If you check all 3 on a site, don't even think twice. Figure out how to get the deal done, right?
That's right.
If you check in 2, dig into the one that's off and see if you can explain why it's an exception. If you can only check 1 box, move along.
That's right. Right. Get through.
That's how we train people to incorporate our platform and our analytics.
And it also gives you a chance to look at more deals faster, which ultimately leads to a better deal. It always does, a better real estate deal. I oftentimes will get caught up with a franchisee who's just dying to jump in a brand, and they've got a broker leading them down a path, and the deal they get is crap, right? It's dirt. It's a dark shell with all kinds of things, and they're going to be costs with finishing the shell. They get this TI money that doesn't equal the deal, and ultimately the franchisee's paying to finish the building, and they don't know that. They don't understand the construction. They're like, oh look, I got $25, but you don't understand the build out of what you should be getting is going to be $75. You just spent $50 a square foot on the TI for the landlord, and you're not noticing that because you just don't know you don't know that. Right, and that's where having multiple deals, and then having people that you can trust that can look at that and go, right, here's where you're getting a full white box, and these are the things that you need. Look, you don't need this or that. You need these, and be able to focus that with the rest of your partnerships with your contractor and your architect and the rest of the team that puts that together.
That's the other portion of, like I said, 3 check boxes. What I'm not privy to, like you are, more so, is there's another 3 you still got to check, and it's all on the negotiation, the lease side, the construction side. Those are all parameters you got to get check boxes on, and that's now you've got 6 or 7 check boxes that the real estate director and individuals are responsible for, and so you can't expecting to get caught up, like you said, to 80%. If you're in the analytics 80% of the time, you don't have 20%. It's hard to spread the other 20% on these other 6 boxes and do a good job, you know?
And what's funny, what's coming down the road in artificial intelligence and the AI model that is going to be able to, as buildings become digital twins, and we've got this BIM model of the base building, and as we are brand and we're able to go out and look at different locations, we're going to be able to get to that predictive index or that predictive cost analysis much faster. I mean, I can see a day when we're looking at sites and knowing numbers instantaneously, like literally.
Now what you're describing is prescriptive analytics. If you take that and you combine it with our top line,
yep. So
we're top line. You're talking about modeling bottom line.
That's right.
You can combine them both. You have a prescription. Build it or don't build it. Sign the lease.
An AMI model in the future that really takes your software, our software, puts those together. That pillar becomes a much, it starts to look at marketplaces and go, look, here's where you're able to get this cost, this predictive sales revenue, and it's getting more fun.
It can prescribe and suggest. Yeah,
Hannibal, it's getting fun. What you're up to, and when I start talking, it gets me so excited. SiteZeus gets me so excited, and where we're going and the stuff that we're breaking through every single day. And by the way, I honor you and your brother for the breakthrough of not knowing you couldn't do this and standing in that every single day. As customers want to get involved and get connected with you, what's the best way for them to catch up with you?
Oh, you can reach out to me at my email, hbaldwin@sitezeus.com, or reach out to anyone inside of our company on LinkedIn, on social, if you've got their emails. And I guarantee the conversation will find its way to me if you're looking for me. So all of those are possibilities and to get in contact.
Well, Hannibal, I got to say, I love talking to you. We even pre-show, we had a lot of fun as you guys as you continue to make breakthroughs on your software, and every time you make another bounce out there, and your other friends want to come on, please come back. And audience members, if you liked this podcast, really please take a second and like it and subscribe. That's how we get a little feedback as to we're hitting the right button. If you got any suggestions, please put some comments down below for us. We love it. I'm going to put a lot of links down below for Hannibal and his company and how to get a hold of them. And I'm really excited. Hannibal, thanks, man. Thanks.
I really appreciate it, Anthony. This was super fun. Don't do many of these, but this was really exceptional, and you put on a great presentation and great podcast, and I'd be happy to do it again. And I've actually got some ideas for folks that I want to send your way.
Cool. I'm break here. Megan, Megan heard that.
Follow up.
Thanks, man. I'm grateful. I'm so grateful.
Definitely.
All right.
Thanks, Anthony. See you guys.
Thanks for joining us. My name is Anthony Amunategui, always looking for people to bring insight into the industry, finding ways to inspire people to have amazing careers in the development world. If you liked our podcast, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. If you really liked our podcast, make sure you hit the little bell. Thanks again for listening. Please share it with your friends.